What's up, everybody? Welcome to the What You Don't Hear podcast. This is a 15-minute Friday where myself and a returning guest, right across the table from me, sit down one more time, but this time talking about a specific topic or subject with the goal or the hope of sending you into your week that's coming up next week, or your weekend that's coming up tomorrow, because you're listening to this on a Friday for sure. You didn't listen to it late. But we're trying to send you into that week with some, positive, actionable, or thought-provoking advice and opinion. And back on the show, joining me, sitting across the table from me for the first time in a minute. It's been a little while.
It's been a while.
Mark Pasternack back on the show. My friend, welcome back.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being down to do this.
Great to be back.
Before we start chatting too much,
here we go.
I'm starting the clock.
The clock's on.
The clock is on. The 15 minutes are slowly, but also very quickly counting down, so we don't have a lot of time.
Let's get into it.
Let's see what we can do. So, the topic of this 15-minute Friday is all about kind of what we were just talking about, realistically, valuing your time. So, as we try to value this 15 minutes that we have to cram all this within, I'm going to toss the floor to you.
Great.
I'm going to let you kick this one off.
Yep.
What does it mean when we are talking about valuing your time? Because I know this can go into 100 different branches. So when you hear the term valuing your time, what does that mean?
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to we all have the same 24 hours in a day, right? Whether you're Ross, whether you're Mark, whether you're Jeff Bezos, whether you're Casey Neistat, whether, you pick the name. We're all human and we all have the same amount of time. You can't cheat it, right? You can always make more money, but you can't make more time. So it just all comes down to how do we value our time? And that could be monetary value, it could be resources, it could be networking, it could be people, it could be our passions, right? But how do we value our own time and where we are spending it?
Yeah, that is, so I love that you use the for lack of a better term, the famous celebrity example.
Oh, yeah.
Because that is something I feel like I've always talked about, and honestly, let be a motivator to me, is that it is very easy. Yes, like I understand that, the Gary V's of the world, or the Shaqs, or the whoever, Elon Musk, again, like you said, name anyone who's a celebrity, and you could be like, oh, well, they're so lucky, they just have all this sort of stuff. And you can say, yes, they now have the resources, they have the team behind them that can help them create things or help them get something done in no time compared to what it might take us to do. However, while I understand that argument, you still have to look at the fact that they got there.
Absolutely.
And I'm assuming most of the time, for most cases of people finding success in some way, most of the time that came from a lot of work being put in before, aka them finding value in how they use their time leading up to them now, yes, being a celebrity, being successful, having the money and the resources to, sure, make a movie next week if they wanted, or start that new brand in a month if they wanted, where, yes, that would be more difficult for people like us to do. But that still doesn't negate the work that they did to get there. And I would say probably a lot of those people, while they do it now, yes, on their journey to the point that they're at, they were valuing their time. They were using it wisely.
Yeah, and not even just to get there, but they continue to value their time to get to where they want to go.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it starts, is like we have to know where we're going, or else you're not going to place a value on your time, right? Like you have to have some sort of big dream you're going after. And that doesn't, I know in the business world, it's a lot like money dream, or it doesn't have to be with money, or it doesn't have to be creative. It could be like I'm an ultra marathon hobbyist, right? And I've got 100 miles pinned up on my board, and that's what I'm chasing when I go on a run, right? So when I value my time as a runner, I'm looking at that big goal, right? And it's not just one workout. It's consistent workouts over time. But to me, that's a very valuable thing. Why? Because I have this crazy goal that's so scary to think about and get to. So if I'm going to achieve that, now I've got to look at my time, especially when it's not a 15-minute workout, it's a 2-hour workout multiple times a week, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think the same goes with business, or if you want to create a full-length feature film, or you want to go get funding for a Kickstarter project, right? You first have to have that really big goal that you're going after, because then that's going to help craft your time and how you spend it.
Yes. So what, like, this is something that's always interesting to me, and like it's easy when you're setting those goals, so you have that like pie in the sky idea to sit and like you're so motivated to chase after that goal. But what I don't think a lot of people tend to do, and I say a lot of people, also including myself, because we are all guilty of all the things, is like, I don't think a lot of people like know how to capture and sustain that motivation for that goal, and how that translates into how they actively spend their time. Because valuing your time, and I know we'll probably get to it sometime in this 15 minutes of, how do you value your time in business? How do you value your time and how somebody is paying you for your time? I know we'll get there. But when it comes to valuing your time in just your day-to-day life, I feel like people often put up a lot more blockades because they might not always have the motivation to chase after that goal. So I think they then let that kind of translate into a devalue of time in a lot of ways, because it's like, oh, well, yesterday I was really motivated to get that brand off or get
Absolutely.
in shape or whatever it may have been. And man, today I'm just not feeling it.
Well, I think here's the thing. Like, it's a combination between, like, Tim Ferriss's book of, like, the 4-hour work week, right? I think there's a lot of great stuff to pull from there. But, like, I remember 5 or 6 years ago when my wife was starting her wedding photography business, from a stay-at-home mom into a wedding photographer, right? It started with just 4 hours a week. So what we did was we just carved out 4 hours a week for her to just have her own time, to even discover what is that dream for her, what is that passion for her, right? Mm-hmm. And so we looked at, though, like, okay, I could give her time at 5 o'clock, say, when I got home, but she's just been with all the kids. So she does not feeling motivated. She's not feeling inspired. She's not feeling very passionate about anything, right? She just needs a break. So we looked at times, when is she in the flow zone? Yeah. And then let's just schedule 4 hours for that. So, like, for a while it was Saturday morning. So she'd just wake up, she'd be able to get ready just all by herself and then go off and do her own thing until noon, around lunchtime. Because she was in the zone then. She didn't have to worry about kids. She didn't have to worry about this or that. She could just focus on her and herself. And it was those 4 hours a week that created this whole photography business. And then, yes, like, those hours started to get more and more and more, but we just focused on these really small time period where we knew that she was at her best, her most creative.
Yep.
And then it just went from there, whereas I think, like, okay, you throw a big lofty goal and then you just are like, well, now I need all of my time to be dedicated to this, but you don't know how to, right? It's the same conundrum of, like, value-based pricing, like, go from charging $500 a video to $50,000 a video. Well, it's overwhelming because you don't know what goes into that. Mm-hmm. Same with your time. You've got this big goal. You want to make a full-length feature film. You don't quite know how to break that down. So you got to start with baby steps. Yeah. Right? Yep. Start with these smaller goals and then keep achieving them and then making bigger goals, because your habits are going to continue to follow you. Like, back to those celebrity examples, right? It's like, sure, they put in a lot of work then, but they're continually putting in work every single day, every week, every month, every year. And if you talk to them, not every day is perfect, right? But they find where they are at their best, and they find, when is the best time and where are my strengths, and then let's put those together. Yeah. So it's like, I used to think, I have to wake up at 5 a.m., get a workout in, meditate, read this and this all before I go to work. When, like, really that was just crushing a lot of my flow state, and I was more stressed, I was more anxious. And that's not when I do that. Right. Yep. So it's, I think, for you, understanding as the viewer or the listener here is, like, when is it that you feel, generally speaking, especially if you want to make a change, let's make it as easy as possible. What's the 1 hour a day that you feel like, oh yeah, I'm the best in this hour? I know, like, for me as a parent, sometimes that's when the kids go to bed because the whole house is quiet, or sometimes it is in the morning, right? But just find that 1 hour, even if it's not 4 hours, just find that 1 hour and start from there.
Yep.
And then
Yep.
you'll see it snowball.
It's the baby steps. It's
Exactly.
making that identifier of, because like valuing your time isn't so much about like, oh, I'm making these business deals in this next hour, or I'm doing this every
Yep.
single day. It can be breaking it down into incremental steps. That's just
Absolutely.
like, this little bit of time is when I have the most energy or the most motivation or the most clarity to make any sort of step towards my goal. Take advantage of that moment. It's not about, like, I think even the blanket statement of time, in the subject of this episode, it sounds like it's, I don't know, larger or more vast or more, I don't know. I feel like it's actually more about the energy that you're putting in. What that I think is where you can get the most value out of your time, is learning how to harness that energy. Like, for years, I've always like coined the mantra, chase it daily. Like, it's the neon sign up on the wall, right? That became my thing. And at first it was just like this little like fun hypey thing that I wanted to say every day. But it really came from a place of like, well, I know that in order to pursue and attain the goals that I have, I need to effectively chase after them daily. And that doesn't mean to grind and hustle myself into the ground every single day, all day, although I've been there. It more so meant valuing my time, valuing the energy and motivation when I had it to do even one thing. Like you said, it doesn't even have to be 4 hours. It can be 1 hour, or even less if it really has to be. But finding that time to do something, whether it's small or big, do something small every single day that takes you one tiny step towards closer to your goal.
Absolutely.
Like, rather than just looking at the big picture and, like you were saying, well, how do I get from point A to point Z? I don't know what to do. I don't have the energy right now. And like, instead of trying to force those things, what are the small pieces that build the larger picture?
One step at a time.
Yes.
Yep.
So as we get into the last few minutes here, let's talk about like how that turns into, like, the value of time turns into a financial freedom or a financial gain, and dip into the business talk a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think when you value your time and you put boundaries around it, then you understand, okay, if I only have 8 hours for this one business, now all of a sudden you're looking at your time within 5-minute increments and not an hour increment, right? Like, I generally don't work on Monday and Friday. It's more just like things I love to do, spending time with my family, doing this. And then I run 3 businesses, and I have one dedicated on Tuesday, one dedicated on Wednesday, one dedicated on Thursday. Doesn't mean they never cross over, right? But those are the boundaries I set for myself. So what that does for me is, it's like, okay, like, I've got 8 hours on this business. What can I do in 8 hours? How can I be the most efficient with my time to create the dream business that I want if I only had 8 hours? Because I came from running an agency where I was working 80 to 100 hours, but it was a lot of wasted time, right? Because I just had this perception that I thought I had to work all of these hours and do all of these things to grow the business. When you limit your amount of time that you can spend on something, you start to look at your activities different, right? You start to see, oh, wait, like, maybe all of this stuff I was doing doesn't have any importance to my goal or my dream, right? So I think it's like, it's just getting really clear as to what your goal is, and what if you only had 4 or 8 hours to work on that a week? How would you act? How would you spend your time?
Yeah. I love you putting it that way. That I love kind of breaking it down of like, yes, if you only had 4 hours a week, how would you use that time?
You would use it totally different.
You would probably be a little bit more wise with the steps that you're taking or the energy that you're putting into something, and not looking at it as like it's either an all or nothing thing. Like, sometimes the all is that tiny step, and that is the best way and the best, I don't know, that's the best way you can find value in your
Absolutely.
time.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be some astronomical, huge,
No.
crazy change. So we're about to wrap up.
Yep.
What would be your final, like, is there any like actionable advice you would share with somebody of like, hey, like, Ross and I just talked about all this sort of stuff about valuing your time. We threw out all these fun little one-liners, all this sort of stuff. But if somebody's listening to this right now and they're like, okay, I'm hearing what you guys are saying, picking up what you're putting down, but how could I get started tomorrow? What are some actionable initiating steps to better value my time? What would you share with that person as we close out this episode?
Track your time. Literally get a notebook, a spreadsheet, an Excel sheet, and track your time. You don't have to make it overwhelming, because it is at first. Because it's like looking at your bank account. It exposes you, right? It tells you a story of your life. And when you track your time over time, you start to look back and you actually see what you value. Not just what you say you value, but what your actions speak that you value. So track your time and start looking back, because then you're going to be really honest with yourself.
I love it. That was pretty much
Boom.
right in the minute. There it is. That's our 15
minutes.
minutes. Done. So Mark, as we say goodbye, is there anything you would like for people to go check out around the internet if they want to get to know more about you or any of those brands or companies that you alluded to spending some of your time on? Where can they find you around the net if you want them to do so?
Absolutely. So you can find my wife and I, we're the Pasternacks. Hashtag the Pasternacks on Instagram or thepasternacks.com. Our focus is really helping people use their time better so they can go from surviving to thriving in their marriage, family, and business. And then another one you can check out is an ambitious filmmaker, where we teach filmmakers how to create financially sustainable video businesses. And time is a big part of that as well.
Boom. This wrapped up perfectly. Look at all that.
Let's go.
It's almost like we were intentional with what episodes to have you on for these topics. Mark, thank you so much, dude.
You're welcome. Thank you.
It.
Thank you.